video about using Azure Active Directory with ASP.NET Core, and particularly using the library AuthPermissions ASP.NET Core. Let me just start with a quick introduction to the AuthP library, which I've made it shorter. It provides 3 authorization features. The first is it improves role authorization in ASP.NET Core. In particular, if you want to change what a role can do in your code, you don't have to edit your code and redeploy it. You can change it from a admin page in your app. The other thing is adding more security to the JWT token. There's a extra part to the definition of these tokens, and you can use a refresh to make it more secure. The third is how to create multiple multi-tenant applications, and it helps you to organize those and their users. The actual code is at this URL, as you can see, and this contains various code that makes up the library, but also has 5 different examples for you to look at, and there is a very extensive set of documentation to go with this library. So let's get on to Azure Active Directory, shortened to Azure AD. I've worked on 2 common types of business applications as a contractor. The one application which I did quite a lot of work on it, 6 months working on it, was for a company, and it was an internal system for managing quotes and versus stock, and only company users would log in, and that could use the Azure AD linked to their Office 365 usage. The other one, I did an application where external users can log in, and I did this about 4 years ago, and it was a what's called a SaaS, so a software as a service. So this company was providing a service to restaurants to look after their stock and their menus and things like that, and people would externally be will log on, and it was a multi-tenant system, and they would be sent to the right place. In that one, we used Auth0, which is a proprietary authentication system that you can use. But nowadays, well, you can still use Auth0. It's very good, but there is another option here of Azure AD B2C, and that came out I don't know, a year or so ago. I don't know, but it's certainly after I'd done that job, because I think we would have used that for that job. So why would Azure AD be useful? And why? And it's because the standard individual user accounts approach in ASP.NET Core has been around for years, and it's good, but it's, you know, security is more and more important, isn't it? And Azure AD is superior in that case. You can do things like determine where the user can a user can log in from geographically, and even if you don't turn that on, if you logged on in the UK and then suddenly it noticed that you the same user is logged in from Zambia, then it would say something's going wrong here, and it will look out for those sort of things. So there's a new release 1.3.0 of AuthP, which has a built-in Azure AD adapter. What happened is one of the users of my library said, "Oh, I'm trying to create something for Azure AD, and it doesn't work." He couldn't do it, and there was a bug in my code. I hadn't understood something, so I fixed that. And in the meantime, at the same time, I built an Azure AD adapter to check, because I think it's very useful, and also to make sure I was giving the right thing to the user. So let's go through and let's start by looking at how we create, how this all works, and how we use Azure AD. Let's go to this. So what happens is, this is a how to sign in users using my Azure AD, right? And what happens is, and this is classic, this is the way that Auth0 works. You have something in your browser saying sign in, and it come down here, and you said something back to redirect the user to somewhere else. In this case, it's this Microsoft identity platform, right? And what happens is it takes over the checking that it's the person that is logging in is correct, and then it will send back a token saying, yep, that's fine, everything's good, carry on. Now I want to talk to you a little bit about how to set up a Azure AD B2C system, and I found it a little bit complex, so I'm going to show you some of the things I found. So let's start with a link to, this is a very useful, look at this, create an Azure Active Directory B2C tenant, right? Took me a while to find this, but it's there, so let's make it big. And it takes you through the steps, right? So first of all, you have to create a new directory, right? Doing that, I'm not going to show you exactly how to do that and go into the portal, because there's data there that is secret. But this is the sort of thing you do here. I've created a Azure AD B2C called AuthPermissions on Microsoft.com, and you have to, the next thing you need to do is you have to create what's called an app registration. and this is going to give you a secret key that you'll need. We'll look at how you do that. Yeah. So it says what you have to do is you create a client secret, right? And one thing I didn't get this at the beginning, but when you create this, you have to take a copy of it immediately. As soon as you leave the page, it's gone, right? And that confused me. So just be aware of that. And you will get back this secret key, and we'll see how we use that in a minute. The other thing you need to do is set up what's called a user's flow, right? And we've got some, it gives you different options. I've got a bigger version of this. Oh, no, not that one. Yeah, right. For a internal company, all you want is sign in. You don't want anybody to sign up, because you don't want anybody coming along and trying to become part of your company. Really don't want that. So you sign is what you do if you're an internal company and you're using their Office 365 Azure AD directory, right? Even if you didn't have Office 365, you could still use Azure AD and put things in yourself. If you have like an e-commerce or SaaS application where people have to log in, then you need a sign up and sign in. So sign up is saying, I want to use your application, and I want to, I'm going to give you a password and all the various things to handle all the security issues. So and that's, so you have to select one of these for what you're going to do, right? You might add up other things like password reset and all that sort of stuff. That's fine. So the last thing you do is you add this all the information that you've got into your application right, and you have various things here. They don't give you the code, but I have got it for you. So say this, let's just close this, go back to startup. Yeah, so here we are. There's two things you need to do. Oh, this is, let's make this bigger and make this bigger. So you say add authentication, and you say add Microsoft Identity Web API, right? And it's going to get some data from your app settings, right? The other thing you need to add is this, is add Microsoft Identity UI, because that's going to do this sign in, sign out, and all that sort of stuff. Okay, so that's what you need to do there. Let's look at the app settings. Right, so first off, this client secret shouldn't be shown. Why am I even showing this? Well, this is in what is called example 5, and if I start this one, see, there you are. it starts up. And what I wanted, all the examples I created are designed so that you can run them, right? And you just clone the library, AuthPermissions.asp.NET Core, and then you can run these, and they're set up so that they will come alive straight away. And here you are. I've got two very important and users, test and admin, right? And we'll see how we log in there. So what I've done is you'll find out that the you can see it here. This is a sign-in only library. It happens to use B2C version, but I've set it only to sign in. So you can't do anything, you can't add any new people, and you can only play around with what's in there already. So that I make that available. If you want to go and use that to do something, there's not much that's secret behind it. So yeah, so that's what you would do. And this client secret in a real application, you would have maybe you'd have something for testing, and that might be something in here. The whole thing might be testing, and when you go to production, you might replace this with something else in your CI/CD pipeline. Okay, so that shows you how it starts. Let's have a look of, let's go and log in to something. So very helpfully, I have the password here. So I'm going to sign in as admin. As admin. There's this password. No. So I'm logged in, and it knows I'm an AuthPP admin user, right? And I can therefore do things. I can look at the user in there, and I could edit this test user, and give them different features and whatever. So that's how it looks. How does it work? Well, if we look at the claims, I've put because I've added this adapter. What will happen is, when you log in, it will add this extra claim called permissions, which is used by AuthP, sorry. If I was on a multi-tenant, it would also have the data key in here as well. So that's how it happens. Most of this came from, most of this came from Azure AD. I wanted to add that, and I'll explain. I had to do some other things as well. So that's how that works. And so let's go and have a look at that code so that you know what's going on. You don't need to write it because I've written it, but let's go and see. So Azure AD uses this ASP.NET Core's Open Connect feature, which is used on lots of things, right? So what I'm showing you now is the one for Azure AD, but the way I've done this would work for other places. So what I need to do is I need to find out the user ID, right? Which is given to me from the claims that Azure AD provides. I also wanted the email for various reasons. And what I do is I say, oh, is the user already in the there's a user in the Azure AD, but AuthP needs to have something. So you saw here, this has extra information, and that doesn't come from Azure AD. This is done via the AuthP library from the database. So let's go back to this, and if there's no known users in AuthP, then it says, well, you could add them if you wanted to, or you get a warning saying, oh, someone you don't know logged in. Otherwise, it will create the claim principal with the AuthP parts. Now, this is a bit more complicated than it should, because I found out that Azure AD set the claim identifier not to the user ID, but to a different number. So I have to remove that and add it again with that user ID from another claim. That's because AuthP relies on it, and quite honestly, quite a lot of things rely on it. That's the typical place where you put the user ID. And because of this code is a bit more complicated. What I wanted to say is that if you if I didn't need to have to remove that claim, it would be very simpler. So you can see here, this is someone who has created this for, it's exactly the same thing, but you can see here, he's just adding another claim, right? And that's much simpler. So bear that in mind if you're doing something else. If you were building one of these for Auth0 or for Google or anything like that. Okay, so let's just go and look at the configuration, how I configure AuthP. So this looks quite complicated, but what you have to do is you register that. I'm not going to explain this. This is all about roles, and I've written articles about it, and there's tons of information on that. But this is the important thing here. We have gone Azure AD authentication. So it says we are using Azure AD authentication, and it set that up. If we go and see this, well, you've seen the end result. It basically calls it. You can see here it says it registers this approach with the event that I was talking about. So that's what that line does. What's this? Oh yes, I wanted to add some users, and this is a common thing. If you're deploying a new application, you have to have at least one admin user in there, because otherwise you can't log in to get at the code to add more users, right? or change users. So you need to put something in there to get it all set up. Otherwise, it's not going to work. That would be true of if you were using individual user accounts as well. You have to get at least one person in. I actually added 2 here, and I will show you what I do. So what I do is I loaded up some different roles, and then I defined 2 users, and I told it which roles it had. There's only 1 in each of these, so you can have multiple. But then I got this user ID by going to the Azure AD, looking at the users and getting that user ID, right? So that's how I could put that in, and when you start up, it would add those to the AuthP, and that means I can just straight away get hold of what to a user to add other users. Now you might be wondering, in the company case, or in the SaaS case, you could have a new user come along, and how would you know about it? Well, you could in here, there's a thing that said, oh, if it's not in there, I'll create a new one for you. But I quite like what this thing does. What I do, what am I? Yeah, I'm in admin. You can see this button here. If I click this, it goes and asks Azure AD to get a list of all the users that are there, and if there are, and it says, oh look, it'll tell you if they are new, which is create. They've updated, maybe say maybe the username was changed or the email changed or something, or if someone was removed or blocked, it would say delete. So I've got this one here, and I can just press this and they get them all. But let's just do this one. If I get this one, I go, oh, I'm going to make him basic. This extra user is now a basic user. And as you can see, I have got 3 user in there. If I do this, I only have 1, right? And I don't want that one because that's something else for setting up. So yeah, that. And how do I do that? It's a very useful feature, and I use it across the board, and there are syncs for different authentication providers. So let's go and have a look at this sync Azure AD users, right? It has to follow this interface, and all it says is that you must implement this method. And you can see here what I'm doing is I'm returning a sync authentication user for with their ID, mail, and display name for all the users in the Azure AD database. Oh, that's not quite true. All the users where the account is enabled. So if I disabled a user, I'm not going to do that at the moment, but then what would happen? It would wouldn't turn up, and if you had this, let's go back to this. Let's just delete this. All right. Say this this user was in the list, and then this one, extra user, if it was in the list and they got blocked, it would say, oh, you need to delete it because that person is not a valid person, right? So that's the way it works. But let's have a look at the code again. One of the things that's really nice about Azure AD is they have this graph API, which allows you to do all sorts of requests to the Azure AD directory. And you can see here I'm saying I want to get a list of all the users that are valid, enabled, and I do various things. Now, to do that, what you have to do is you have to, well, there's two things you could do, but this is the way I recommend. This is the registration of the application that gives me the secret to run things, right? You remember this? It gives me the client secret, but what you can do as well is it has these by default, but you can add a permission, and in this case I added user read all, and that means that my application with that secret key can read the database. That's how that works, right? The other way, if you don't want to do that, is you could have an admin user that only they would be able to call that call this system, because they would have that. They personally would have the ability to read all the users. So that's how that works. Just a couple of things to think about. I said already that you've got the sign in, I think, is fairly straightforward. You're using a list of users in the Azure AD, and you just have to, if a new person comes on, then they have to ask the admin person to do a sync and add some information to them. The sign up and sign in is a bit more complicated. Of course, they can sign up and they can log in, but they won't have any features for roles from the AuthP, so they will be limited in what they can do, which is exactly right. So you've got a couple of things that you could do, but I would recommend that they sign up and immediately go. If they have no if it's not known by AuthP, they go to a page saying, oh, hello, you're new, what do you want to use, how much money you're going to pay, please pay here for this feature or what you're doing, right? The other alternative is to have someone that will an admin person that will set things up once someone's logged in. And really, that is, I'm at the end of talking about, sorry. So in summary, I think Azure AD is a good way to manage users. It's very good and it's easy to work with. Having used Auth0, it's good, but I think Azure AD is a bit easier to use because they've written a whole load of NuGet packages that link you together. I use the AuthP library, allows you to add extra useful features, just like that idea of changing the roles for a user. Managing the users and what they can do and what's in the roles is a nice feature. And now with the new release of 1.30, it has a configuration for a Azure AD, and you can find, like the sync code that I showed you, that is in example 3. So you can, and there's a whole load of code there, and you can just pick that up and use it yourself. And just to say that just to repeat that the AuthPermissions ASP.NET Core GitHub has lots of documentation, all those different example applications, and I'm planning other extensions in the future as well. So thank you for listening, and I hope that is useful.